The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council stretched high above the assembled delegates, its transparent walls revealing the swirling nebulae of deep space beyond. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the chamber, their various forms creating a tapestry of scales, feathers, and chitinous armor that gleamed under the artificial starlight. Ambassador Kralthex of the Zephyrian Empire moved through the crowd on his 6 legs, his forearms clutching data tablets that trembled in his grasp. The reptilian diplomat's usually composed demeanor had cracked, replaced by barely contained panic that sent ripples of unease through nearby delegates. "Emergency session called to order," announced the chamber's artificial intelligence, its voice resonating through translation devices worn by every species present. "Ambassador Kralthex has requested immediate audience regarding Outer Rim security concerns." Kralthex approached the central podium, his scaled hands activating the massive holographic projector. 3-dimensional star charts materialized above the assembly, showing the galaxy's outer territories in stunning detail. Red markers pulsed ominously near the Kepler sector, each one representing an unexplained energy signature. "Honored Council members," Kralthex began, his forked tongue flicking nervously, "our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity along the galactic rim. These energy readings—" He gestured frantically at the display, causing his ceremonial robes to flutter. "They match no known propulsion systems, no familiar weapon signatures, nothing in our extensive databases." The first interruption came from the Andromedan delegation. Elder Vorthak, a massive creature resembling a cross between an octopus and a crystal formation, raised his bulk from his specialized seating. His jeweled eyes, each the size of a dinner plate, fixed on Kralthex, with obvious amusement. "Ambassador, surely you're not suggesting these phantom readings indicate hostile activity?" Vorthak's voice carried the weight of centuries, enhanced by the natural reverb of his crystalline vocal chambers. "Our long-range sensors are sophisticated, but they're not infallible. Cosmic storms, gravitational anomalies, even old mining equipment can create unusual signatures." A chorus of agreement rose from various delegates. The Centaurian trade representatives clicked their mandibles in a pattern that indicated skepticism, while the gaseous nebula collective's representatives pulsed with colors that translated to dismissive humor. Kralthex's eyes narrowed as he manipulated the hologram, zooming in on specific incidents. "These aren't random anomalies. Look at the patterns. The energy spikes occur in groups, suggesting coordinated movement. The signatures appear, remain stable for precisely 47 minutes, then vanish completely. This level of stealth technology exceeds anything currently known to galactic civilization." "Or," interrupted Councillor Zeref from the Titan Collective, her mechanical voice cutting through the chamber's ambient noise, "you're seeing patterns where none exist. The Zephyrian military has always been prone to paranoia." Zeref's robotic form stood nearly 3 meters tall, her polished chrome surface reflecting the holographic display. Her species had long ago uploaded their consciousness into mechanical bodies, prizing logic over emotion. "Statistical analysis of your data shows a 67% probability that these readings represent natural phenomena or equipment malfunction." The chamber erupted in supportive vocalizations from dozens of species, but it was Elder Vorthak who delivered the blow that would haunt the Council in the coming months. "Ambassador Kralthex," the ancient Andromedan rumbled, his massive form shifting to face the Zephyrian directly. "Are you perhaps suggesting these readings indicate the return of the mythical humans?" The laughter that followed was immediate and overwhelming. Delegates who rarely agreed on anything found common ground in their amusement. The crystalline Shadari tinkled like wind chimes, the mammalian Korvaxians howled with glee, and even the usually stoic silicon-based Terrans generated harmonic frequencies that resembled chuckling. For 3,000 standard years, stories of Earth and its inhabitants had been the stuff of legend. Ancient texts spoke of bipedal creatures who walked upright, possessed only 2 arms and 2 legs, and somehow conquered vast stretches of space despite their apparent physical limitations. These humans were said to be warriors without equal, strategists who could outthink computers, and survivors who thrived in conditions that would kill most known species. Every major archaeological expedition had searched for evidence of Earth. Deep space explorers had mapped countless dead worlds, analyzed millions of stellar systems, and found nothing but empty space where the human homeworld was supposed to exist. The consensus among serious scholars was clear. Humans were mythology, a collective fiction created to explain certain gaps in galactic history. The humans, declared Councillor Zeref with mechanical precision, are a convenient story to frighten younglings and explain away equipment failures. Your scouts probably encountered debris from an old mining operation, Ambassador. I suggest better maintenance of your sensor arrays. But 800 light-years away on Kepler Station, Administrator Veltar stared at reports that chilled his blue blood to ice. 3 more patrol ships had vanished in the past cycle, their crews of 24 beings simply gone without a trace. The last transmissions were always the same, routine status reports that ended abruptly in crackling static. Veltar's tentacles moved across his control console, bringing up detailed analysis of the disappearance sites. The energy residue left behind was unlike anything in their extensive databases. It was organized, purposeful, and somehow familiar in a way that made his species' natural psychic abilities scream warnings. In the darkness between stars, something ancient was stirring. Something that had been watching, learning, and preparing for far longer than anyone could imagine. Captain Mordash adjusted his environmental suit as he peered through the reinforced viewport of the mining vessel Prosperity's Edge. His elongated skull, typical of the Zephyrian species, reflected the amber glow of the nearby asteroid field, where his crew had been extracting rare minerals for the past 3 weeks. 40 years of deep space operations had shown him wonders beyond imagination, but today would challenge everything he thought he knew about the galaxy. The asteroid field stretched endlessly around them, massive rocks tumbling slowly through space like sleeping giants. Mordash's convoy consisted of 5 vessels, 3 mining ships, 1 processing station, and a single escort frigate armed with basic defensive systems. It was a routine operation in what everyone considered safe space, far from any known conflict zones or pirate territories. "Captain," called out his sensor operator, a young Zephyrian named Keksaval, whose head tentacles twitched nervously as he studied his displays. "I'm detecting an energy signature approaching our position. It's massive, sir, much larger than our escort frigate." Mordash moved to the sensor station, his forearms working efficiently across multiple control panels. The readings showed something impossible, a vessel nearly 2 kilometers in length, its energy output suggesting advanced propulsion systems. That exceeded anything in current galactic databases. "Could be a derelict," suggested his first officer, though uncertainty colored her voice. "Maybe an ancient ship from the old wars, drifting through space for centuries." Before Mordash could respond, reality twisted around them. Space itself seemed to bend and fold as the unknown vessel materialized from hyperspace, with precision that made their own navigation computers look primitive. The ship hung before them like a metal predator, its hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. The vessel was unlike anything Mordash had ever encountered. Where galactic civilizations favored flowing lines that mimicked natural forms, this ship was built from sharp angles and brutal efficiency. Its hull was a dark metallic gray, broken by geometric patterns that suggested both strength and intimidation. Weapon ports lined its surface like the eyes of some ancient beast, while sensor arrays swept across its hull in configurations that seemed almost alien in their complexity. "By the 7 moons," whispered Kexval, his voice barely audible over the bridge's ambient noise. "Look at the size of those engine exhausts. This thing could outrun anything in the galactic fleet." Mordash activated his communication system, following protocols that had been established centuries ago for first contact situations. His voice carried the formal tone required by interstellar law as he transmitted across standard frequencies. "Unknown. Vessel, this is Captain Mordash of the Zephyrian Mining Consortium, operating under Galactic Commercial License 774 Alpha. Please identify yourself and state your intentions in this sector." The response came immediately, spoken, in perfect galactic standard, but with an accent that sent chills down Mordash's spine. The voice was crisp, controlled, and carried an authority that suggested military training of the highest order. This is Commander Park of the Earth Defense Force vessel, Indomitable. We are conducting territorial surveys in this sector as part of ongoing reconnaissance operations. Please state your current defensive capabilities and the number of armed vessels in your convoy. Mordash's crew exchanged worried glances around the bridge. In all his years of space travel, no species had ever opened first contact by asking about weapons and defenses. The standard protocol involved cultural exchanges, trade discussions, and diplomatic pleasantries that could last for hours. "We are a civilian mining operation," Mordash replied carefully, his voice betraying the nervousness he felt. "Our convoy consists of commercial vessels equipped only with standard asteroid clearing charges and basic navigational shields. We carry no military-grade weaponry." "Understood. What is the typical response time for your government's military forces to reach this sector in case of emergency? How many patrol vessels does the Zephyrian Empire maintain along the Outer Rim territories?" The questions came like rapid-fire interrogation, each one more unsettling than the last. Commander Park's voice remained professionally neutral, but the clinical nature of his inquiries suggested intelligence gathering of the most sophisticated kind. "These questions are highly unusual for first contact protocols," Mordash stammered, his training warring with growing alarm. "Perhaps we could begin with cultural exchanges or trade discussions as specified in galactic law." "Captain Mordash," came the reply, and this time there was almost a hint of amusement in the human's voice. "We have been observing galactic civilization for quite some time. Your languages, your customs, your military capabilities, your trade routes, your political structures. We have studied them all extensively. What we require now is confirmation of current tactical information." The mining captain felt his blood chill as the implications struck home. This wasn't first contact at all. These beings, whoever they were, had been watching and learning for an unknown period of time. They had mastered galactic languages, studied military protocols, and positioned themselves to ask exactly the right questions. "You claim to be from Earth," Mordash said slowly, his voice barely steady. "But Earth is a myth. Humans are legends from ancient stories. They've been extinct for 3,000 years. Commander Park's laugh was brief, but genuine. "Captain, your archaeological surveys found empty space because we wanted them to. Your deep space explorers discovered nothing because we ensured they would find nothing. The galaxy dismissed us as myths because myths are invisible, and invisibility has been our greatest weapon." The Indomitable began to move, its massive bulk turning with grace that defied its size. The ship's engines glowed with an inner fire that spoke of technology far beyond anything currently known to galactic science. "Thank you for your cooperation, Captain Mordash. Your information has been most helpful. We suggest you file a routine maintenance report for your sensor logs. Equipment malfunctions are so common in deep space." As the human warship prepared to jump back into hyperspace, Commander Park's voice came one final time. "Oh, and Captain, you might want to inform your government that the old stories weren't quite accurate. We're not extinct. We're just getting started." Space twisted again as the Indomitable vanished, leaving behind only the fading traces of exotic particles and the growing realization that everything the galaxy believed about humans was terrifyingly wrong. The bridge of the Sovereign stretched out like a cathedral of war, its dark surfaces gleaming under the soft blue light of Earth's reflection. Admiral Lee stood at the center of it all, her uniform crisp and her posture commanding as dozens of human officers worked quietly at their stations around her. Through the massive viewport behind her, Earth hung like a precious jewel against the star-filled darkness, a world that every galactic database claimed had never existed. The Admiral's eyes held the weight of 3,000 years of hidden history as she faced the camera array that would broadcast her words to billions of beings across the galaxy. Her voice, when she spoke, carried the authority of someone who had spent decades preparing for this exact moment. "Citizens of the galaxy," Admiral Lee began, her tone measured and deliberate, "I am Admiral Lee Sungmin of the Earth Defense Force, speaking as humanity's official representative. For 3 millennia you have dismissed us as children's stories and ancient mythology. That comfortable lie ends today. Across the galaxy, every major communication network suddenly carried the same impossible image. On Zephyrian worlds, scaled, beings stopped their daily activities to stare at viewing screens in shock. In the crystal cities of the Andromedans, Elder Vorthak himself felt his massive form trembling as he watched the transmission. On mechanical worlds where the Titan Collective had built their robotic paradise, artificial intelligences calculated and recalculated the probability of what they were witnessing. Behind Admiral Lee, the holographic display activated with smooth precision. Three-dimensional images filled the space around her, showing star charts that revealed the true scope of human presence throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked hidden bases, green lines showed secret supply routes, and blue markers indicated observation posts that had been watching galactic civilization for decades. "Let me share with you the real history that your leaders have forgotten," Admiral Lee continued, as the display shifted to show ancient battle records. 3,000 years ago, humanity did indeed face a catastrophic war. But we were not destroyed. As your historians claim, we were betrayed. The hologram showed massive fleets engaged in brutal combat around distant stars. Human vessels, their designs recognizable ancestors of the current Earth Defense Force ships, fought desperate battles against overwhelming odds. But the most shocking revelation came when the display zoomed in on specific battles, showing familiar, galactic species fighting alongside the enemies that had nearly wiped out humanity. The Andromedan Collective, the Titan Federation, even elements of what would become the Zephyrian Empire. They all participated in what they called the cleansing of the human plague. You didn't just ignore our destruction. You helped cause it. On Andromeda Prime, Elder Vorthak's jeweled eyes dimmed as suppressed memories surfaced. The old archives, sealed for millennia, contained records that few living beings had ever seen. Records of a galactic alliance formed specifically to contain human expansion, to prevent what other species saw as an inevitable threat to their dominance. Admiral Lee's expression remained neutral as she continued, but her words carried the weight of centuries of hidden pain. Our survivors did what humans do best. We adapted, we endured, and we planned. While you celebrated our extinction, we rebuilt in the spaces between stars, in systems you never bothered to explore, on worlds you deemed worthless. The holographic display shifted again, showing the incredible scope of human survival. Secret colonies on barren moons, vast underground cities carved from asteroids, massive orbital platforms hidden in the shadow of gas giants. Each installation was a marvel of engineering and determination, proof that humanity had not merely survived, but thrived in exile. For 50 years, what your security forces attributed to random pirate attacks were actually our reconnaissance operations, Admiral Lee revealed, her voice carrying a hint of satisfaction. Every missing convoy, every unexplained equipment failure, every mysterious disappearance in the outer systems, that was us, learning everything we needed to know about your current capabilities. On Kepler Station, Administrator Veltar felt his tentacles go rigid as the truth struck home. All those patrol ships that had vanished, all those energy readings that matched nothing in their databases, humans had been responsible for it all. They had been studied, catalogued and analyzed like specimens in a laboratory. The display behind Admiral Lee now showed detailed schematics of every major galactic military installation, fleet compositions, weapon specifications, defensive capabilities, response times. The humans had mapped it all with terrifying precision. They knew exactly how many ships the Zephyrian Empire could deploy, how quickly the Andromedan Collective could mobilize its crystal-based war machines, and which trade routes were most vulnerable to disruption. We know the location of every major installation, every fleet composition, every trade route, Admiral Lee stated matter-of-factly. We know your diplomatic protocols, your military doctrines, and yes, we know your weaknesses. Knowledge has been our weapon, patience our strategy. In the crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council, emergency sessions erupted into chaos as delegates realized the full scope of their exposure. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive myths now understood they had been outmaneuvered by beings who had spent centuries preparing for this moment. Admiral Lee's expression hardened as she delivered her ultimatum, her voice carrying the authority of a species that had clawed its way back from the brink of extinction. The Galactic Council has exactly 72 hours to respond to our formal request for territorial recognition and immediate trade negotiations. This is not a request born from weakness. It is an opportunity we are extending despite the injustices of the past. She paused, letting her words sink in across thousands of worlds, where beings were beginning to understand that their comfortable universe had just been turned upside down. Failure to respond within this time frame will be interpreted as continued hostile intent toward humanity, Admiral Lee concluded, her voice carrying the quiet menace of absolute confidence. And we will act accordingly. The age of myths and legends is over. The age of human resurgence has begun. As the transmission ended, the galaxy found itself facing a truth that shattered 3 millennia of comfortable assumptions. The humans hadn't just survived their supposed extinction, they had evolved into something far more dangerous than any ancient legend had ever suggested. The chronometer on Admiral Lee's command console ticked past the 72-hour mark with mechanical precision. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council chambers remained eerily quiet, their crystalline walls reflecting the nervous tension of delegates who had spent 3 days arguing in circles. Some wanted to negotiate, others demanded military action, but most simply couldn't accept that their comfortable universe had been shattered by beings they dismissed as bedtime stories. At exactly 72 hours and 37 minutes, Admiral Lee's patience ran out. All units, this is Admiral Lee. Her voice carried across encrypted channels to human forces positioned throughout the galaxy. Operation Revelation is now active. Show them who we really are. Space itself seemed to shiver as reality bent around 43 star systems simultaneously. The technology that had kept human fleets hidden for decades suddenly reversed, revealing the true scope of humanity's return to galactic affairs. What had been empty space moments before now bristled with angular warships that hung in the void, like sleeping predators. In the Kepler sector, Administrator Veltar watched his sensor displays with growing horror as 12 massive human vessels materialized around his station. Each ship was larger than anything in the Zephyrian fleet, their dark hulls studded with weapon ports that could level entire cities. The lead vessel, identified as the Indomitable, was the same ship that had interrogated Captain Mordash weeks earlier. By all the ancient gods, whispered Veltar's sensor operator, his tentacles shaking as he tried to process the readings. Sir, the energy output from just one of those ships exceeds our entire defensive grid. How did they get so close? Without detection? The answer became clear as Admiral Lee's voice echoed across every military frequency in the galaxy, spoken with the calm authority of someone who held all the winning cards. Attention all vessels and installations, she announced, her words, reaching every corner of galactic civilization. You are witnessing the return of humanity to galactic affairs. We strongly suggest you observe rather than attempt to interfere with our operations. What followed was a demonstration of military power that redefined every assumption about warfare in the known galaxy. The human fleet began conducting live-fire exercises on the massive asteroids that drifted through local space, treating rocks the size of moons as mere target practice. The weapons unleashed by human ships defied understanding. Beams of coherent energy turned solid stone into expanding clouds of superheated vapor within seconds. Kinetic projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed punched through asteroids like they were made of paper. Most terrifying of all were the reality-warping munitions that simply made targets cease to exist, leaving behind only twisted space-time that took minutes to stabilize. On the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, Pride of the Empire, Fleet Admiral Kexthon watched the demonstration with growing dread. His forearms worked frantically across tactical displays as he tried to calculate response options, but every scenario ended in complete annihilation. Sir, reported his weapons officer, her voice barely steady, our most powerful planetary siege cannons generate roughly 1/10 the energy output of their standard ship-mounted weapons. Their smallest escort vessel carries more firepower than our entire battle group. But raw, destructive power was only part of the horror show. Human ships moved through space with agility, that made galactic vessels look like lumbering cargo haulers. They accelerated instantly in any direction, changed course without regard for momentum, and somehow maintained perfect formation while performing maneuvers that should have torn them apart. When a brave Andromedan commander decided to test human defenses by firing a warning shot, the results were both immediate and educational. The plasma bolt that could have melted through a mountain simply vanished as it struck the human ship's shields, absorbed by adaptive energy barriers that seemed to learn and counter each attack in real time. Fascinating. Admiral Lee's voice carried a note of genuine interest as she addressed the Andromedan vessel. Your plasma delivery system is quite efficient, though the energy frequency is rather predictable. Our defensive grid has already adapted to counter similar weapons. Please feel free to try again if you'd like further demonstration. The Andromedan commander wisely declined, but the true shock came when Admiral Lee activated galaxy-wide communication networks for another broadcast. This time she wasn't alone on the screen. Flanking her were two figures that made every military analyst in the galaxy recalculate their worst-case scenarios. The human Marines stood like living weapons, their powered armor seamlessly integrated with their bodies in ways that suggested cybernetic enhancement far beyond anything currently known. The suits were sleek and predatory, colored in adaptive camouflage that shifted constantly to match their surroundings. Energy readings indicated personal shield generators, built-in weapon systems, and life support capabilities that could function in the vacuum of space. Allow me to introduce Sergeant Kim Dal-Soo and Corporal Park Ji-won of the Earth Defense Force, Marine Corps, Admiral Lee said calmly. They represent the result of 3,000 years of evolutionary pressure and technological advancement. Sergeant Kim stepped forward, his movement fluid, despite the obvious weight of his armor. When he spoke, his voice carried the controlled intensity of someone trained for warfare, in conditions that would kill most galactic species. We have trained in the crushing gravity of gas-giant moons, in the radiation fields around neutron stars, and in the frozen vacuum of deep space, he reported with military precision. Our enhanced physiology allows us to survive in environments that would be instantly lethal to most galactic life forms. Our equipment amplifies these capabilities by several orders of magnitude. To demonstrate, Corporal Park casually lifted a piece of hull plating that would normally require mechanical assistance, crushing it between her armored fingers like it was made of soft clay. The casual display of strength sent chills through alien observers, who prided themselves on their physical capabilities. We spent 3,000 years learning from our near extinction, Admiral Lee explained, as her Marines returned to their positions. We studied every military conflict in recorded galactic history, analyzed every tactical doctrine, examined every weapon system, and prepared for this exact moment. While you celebrated our destruction, we evolved into something you never imagined possible. In command centers across the galaxy, military leaders watched the demonstration with the growing realization that their fleets had become obsolete overnight. The humans didn't just possess superior technology. They had fundamentally reimagined warfare itself. You believed us to be myths and legends, Admiral Lee concluded, her image now flanked by the impossible sight of Earth hanging peacefully in space behind her. You were catastrophically wrong. The question now is whether you're wise enough to learn from that mistake. The silence that followed was broken only by the quantum hum of human ships maintaining perfect formation around worlds that had thought themselves safe just hours before. The gleaming space station, New Harmony, hung in perfect orbit around Earth like a jewel suspended against the blue marble that had once been dismissed as pure fantasy. 6 months had passed since humanity's dramatic return to galactic affairs, and the massive orbital complex now served as the new seat of galactic government. Its rotating sections housed delegates from hundreds of worlds, all of them learning to navigate a universe where humans held ultimate authority. Through the station's transparent aluminum viewports, Earth turned slowly beneath them, its continents and oceans visible in stunning detail. Many alien delegates found themselves drawn to these windows during breaks in their sessions, staring in wonder at a world their species had spent millennia convinced was nothing more than elaborate mythology. Ambassador Kim Hye-jin stood at the podium in the Grand Assembly Hall, Her crisp diplomatic uniform, a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and environmental suits worn by the alien delegates arranged in concentric circles around her. The hall itself was a marvel of human engineering, with artificial gravity that accommodated the needs of dozens of different species, while holographic displays provided real-time translation services. "Honored delegates," Ambassador Kim began, her voice carrying easily through the chamber's advanced acoustics. "6 months ago, many of you believed humanity was nothing more than ancient legend. Today we gather in the shadow of Earth itself to discuss the future of our shared galaxy." In the front row, former Zephyrian Ambassador Kralthex shifted uncomfortably in his specialized seating. His forearms were folded in a posture that conveyed both resignation and grudging respect. The proud diplomat who had once dismissed human sightings as equipment failures now served as an advisory council member, his expertise valued precisely because he understood how completely the galaxy had underestimated humanity. "The transition period has been remarkably smooth," Ambassador Kim continued, activating a holographic display that showed shipping lanes throughout the galaxy. "Trade volumes have increased by 47%. Piracy incidents have dropped to their lowest levels in recorded history, and territorial disputes that have simmered for centuries have been resolved through peaceful mediation." The statistics were impressive, but what wasn't shown on the display was the reason behind these improvements. Human patrol fleets now moved through space like ghosts, their advanced stealth technology allowing them to monitor vast regions simultaneously. Pirates who had once terrorized merchant vessels now found themselves facing opponents who could track them across multiple star systems and strike with surgical precision. Elder Vorthak of the Andromedan Collective raised his massive crystalline form, his jeweled eyes reflecting the chamber's lighting, as he prepared to speak. "Ambassador Kim, while we acknowledge the improvements in galactic security, many of our member worlds remain concerned about the extent of human surveillance capabilities." Ambassador Kim's smile was polite, but carried an undertone that made several delegates shift nervously. "Elder Vorthak, our monitoring systems are designed to maintain peace and stability. We have no interest in the private affairs of law-abiding citizens. However, those who threaten galactic stability will find themselves under very close scrutiny indeed." The unspoken message was clear to everyone in the chamber. Human intelligence networks had proven themselves capable of tracking individuals across vast distances, predicting conflicts before they erupted, and responding to threats with overwhelming force when necessary. The galaxy had gained security, but at the cost of privacy that many species were still struggling to accept. Councillor Zeraf of the Titan Collective activated her mechanical voice synthesizer, her chrome form gleaming under the chamber's lights. "The efficiency of human administration is undeniable. Crime rates have plummeted, trade disputes are resolved within days rather than years, and several long-standing territorial conflicts have been permanently settled. From a purely logical standpoint, human leadership has produced measurably superior outcomes." Her words carried weight precisely because the Titan Collective valued logic above all else. If their artificial intelligences acknowledged human superiority, other species found it difficult to argue against the evidence. Ambassador Kim nodded graciously. "Humanity doesn't seek to conquer or dominate for the sake of power. Our near extinction taught us that peace requires strength, and strength requires constant vigilance. We learned the hard way that weakness invites aggression, that division breeds conflict, and that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to be prepared for war."